Castle. Sprite Castle. Sprite Castle.
Mr. Rob O'Hara.
Sprite Castle.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to a mega show. We've smashed a bunch of podcasts together to bring you the biggest Christmas spectacular of all times. Allow me to introduce the brains behind the brawn, the man with the plan, my personal buddy, the Boat.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Christmas episode of Amigos 2020. We are here with the Amigos Retro Gaming Broadcasting crew. Joining me from merry old England, we have first on the docket, Tim, Sanksy, and Drew. Hey, Tim.
Hey, everyone. How you doing?
We've got from Sunny, California, we've got Eric Nelson and Cody Hoffman. Hey, guys.
What's going on?
Hello, hello.
And we have from Oklahoma, the one and only Rob Flack O'Hara. Hey, Rob.
Hello, everybody. Happy holidays.
And from West by God himself, reporting live from Amigo Studios East, we have the Brent.
Hey, everybody. Woo!
All right. And so our four shows on the network, Amigos, Everything Amiga, Pixel Gaiden, ARG Presents, and Sprite Castle come together to bring you the Amigos Retro Gaming Holiday Spectacular 2020. That's right, folks. We're talking about Home Alone. Now, Home Alone, of course, one of the sort of modern Christmas classic movies, directed by John Hughes, no slouch in the movie making business, probably made some of the most iconic movies of the past 30 years or so. The movie's great, but we're not here to talk about the movie. We're here to talk about the game.
Do you think the movie's actually great? I'm going to jump in. I watched this movie the other day. I watched the last half of it. I'm going to tell you, when this movie came out, everybody loved it. I don't think it's that good. I'll be honest with you. What do you? Am I the only one?
It's an okay movie, and it's not a Christmas movie.
What do you mean? It takes place during Christmas.
that a Christmas movie does not make. Otherwise, it has nothing to do with Christmas.
Other thoughts?
I thought it had everything to do with Christmas.
Yeah, it takes place during Christmas. They're on a Christmas
nothing
vacation.
says Christmas
Jiminy
like murder.
Christmas.
It's kind of like Die Hard being a Christmas movie. It has nothing to do with Christmas. It just happens
universe.
to take place at Christmas.
In the same universe.
Does anyone else like this film?
Macaulay Culkin prays about his mac and cheese. I mean, what's not Christmas about that?
That's true.
I think what I love about these 80s/early 90s movies, they kind of have this formula that I love, and it's just like this movie popcorn formula where the movie starts and you just kind of get led between one kind of prank to the next and just keeps going. A lot of the movies are like that, and I ate them up. So, yeah, I'm not going to give it 2 thumbs up, but it's enjoyable every time I watch it.
How old were you when this came out, Cody, if I may ask?
Let's see. What is this? 90? Home Alone 90?
Somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah.
Yeah, I would.
91,
be 7.
I think, wasn't it?
7. All right.
I was 7. Yep.
Yeah, I had graduated from high school by then, so I may have a different slant on. I can see where a kid would like. I mean, I like the Road Runner cartoons.
With the Wet Bandits more than the kid.
Yeah, I did. Those guys were hard work, and they were out there trying to make a buck. That little bum kept humiliating them, hurting them. He burnt that one dude's head. That's no good.
It's one thing. I'm not going to sit here and defend Home Alone as being a great film because I don't really know that much about movies. But I'll tell you this:
what is that? That's your excuse?
Yeah.
You watch movies?
I
you
don't
know as
watch
much
a
as
lot
the
of
rest of
movies.
us?
No, I watch far, far, far fewer films than I guarantee all of you have. But I'll tell you this: the whole shtick of the movie, which is like the kid doing funny things to the guys. I just rewatched this when I found out we were playing it, and I was shocked because all of that stuff happens literally in like the last 15 to 20 minutes of the movie. Like the first, hour and 10 minutes is nothing but lead up. And I totally didn't remember that from watching it as a kid, because when I watched it as a kid, the only thing I remembered was the guy stepping on a nail, the iron hitting the guy and all that stuff. So I thought that was interesting.
The main thing I remember from the film is the first time that he tried the aftershave.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny when I watch the movie now, because my biggest thing is hoping that those guys, like, I wonder about their insurance premiums, like,
It's if you really step back and look at it, the kid is trying to murder them, and the bandits are trying to murder the kid.
Yeah.
Towards the end of the movie, they're not even worried about stealing anything anymore. It's all about killing. Very Christmassy.
It is surprisingly violent. I mean, Bo, you hate violence. So I don't know how you could put this movie over. He burns a dude's head. He rams a nail through that one guy's foot. Like, he jacks these guys up. And then also, when they finally catch that little freak, am I the only one that was rooting for them to mess him up? I would have torn that kid in half. And the way they were talking, they were going to violently murder this child right on screen. So it surprised me if that old man hadn't came in with the shovel, he'd have been, gruesomely murdered.
I'm gonna guess, Aaron, you're the only one that wanted to see the child murdered.
Well, I mean,
could be wrong.
I wanted to see him murdered until the deed was about to be done. Then I was like, I got a little cold feet at that point. I'm not gonna lie to you.
So you just want Pesci to pick Macaulay Culkin up and say, "Do I amuse you? Am I a funny guy?"
Yeah. Maybe
Aaron
smack
just
him
wanted
around.
the child to be maimed. That's
That's
much
right.
better, Aaron.
Luckily, Macaulay Culkin sort of maimed himself later on in his life. But actually,
Macaulay Culkin, anybody want to take a guess at his age?
He's older than me.
What's an over? Aaron, give us the over/under on Macaulay.
he's
Culkin's
probably
age.
43.
He's 40 plus. I'll tell you that. I remember when he turned 40, and I can't remember if it was last year or this year.
I saw him in a couple films as an adult, and he was quite good. To be honest with you, a surprisingly good actor. I mean, he's a niche actor these days, but I mean, he's good. Now, he was on Angry Video Game Nerd too, like last year as well. So, but I mean, he's got good chops.
He jumped the shark at Richie Rich.
Oh man, yeah. I used to read those comic books too, so I was not happy with that particular film.
All right, I've just fact checked with Wikipedia. Macaulay Culkin, 40 on the dot.
I was close.
Yeah. All right, we're not here to discuss the film. Well, I guess we sort of are, because we just did. But we're going to move on to the first port of the of Home Alone that we're going to talk about. I'm going to lead the charge this week, to use Aaron's speak, and we're going to talk about the NES version of Home Alone. Okay, so the NES version of Home Alone was published by THQ. Here's some trivia for you. Anybody know what THQ stands for?
The toy headquarters.
That's right. That's
wow.
right.
Wow.
Not a lot of people know that.
Wow.
Not a lot of people
That's why
know
he's
that.
on our show.
Yeah. So THQ, they are, of course, defunct, and one of the more famous bankruptcy fall apartings of a company, video game company. And this game was developed by, this is crazy, get ready, Bethesda developed this game. That's right. The same studio that gave us Elder Scrolls, Wolfenstein, Doom, Fallout 76. In their early days, just after they finished their sort of spate of hockey games for the Amiga, which is where they cut their teeth, they released Home Alone. And they followed this up with two of the most important games in video game history. You've got Where's Waldo for the NES, the video game that no one asked for. And speaking of games that no one asked for, get this, in 1993, they completed the Mac port of Sword of Sodan. Because if there's one things that Mac owners were begging for in 1993 was a port of Sword of Sodan.
That's a good game. That's a good game, Boat. Good for the Mac. I'm glad to see they got that.
Now, the team behind this, it was a two-man team. It was Paul Coletta and Randy Linden. Okay, Paul Coletta didn't do a whole lot in the industry. He also collaborated with Bethesda in the making of the Where's Waldo game. Has anybody played Where's Waldo for the NES?
Nope.
No.
I have, yes.
What do you think of it, Brent?
Well, It's Where's Waldo, except you have to mouse scroll to everything, so it's horrible.
Yes, that's exactly it. He did do an Apple II game called Time Tunnels, but that was it for Paul Coletta. Randy Linden did a lot more stuff. He's probably the biggest project he probably did was he actually was responsible for the rotoscoping on Dragon's Lair Escape from Singe's Castle.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
played that.
Now, this is not the same as Dragon's Lair 2, right, Aaron?
Well, Escape from Singe's Castle was well, I believe that was one of the Amiga releases where they just basically took some scenes they didn't use in the first one and stuck it in that one. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then they added some. You know, that's going to be gold.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, that was the two-man team behind Home Alone. Okay, so let's get into it. What do you do in the NES version of Home Alone? Okay, well, the game starts and you have a pretty nice looking intro screen. It's the outside of the Arnold house, and that's where the good times end, really, because as soon as you hit start, you see it looks a lot like the house from Little Computer People. It's designed in the same way. It's got that dollhouse kind of cut in half look. The house is divided into multiple levels. You have it's almost like 2.5 levels where you have the outdoor area. Then just above that is the first floor. Then you have the second floor. And just like in the film, you can leave the second floor on the right side and traverse a rope to get to your treehouse on the right side of the property. You also have a basement area in the bottom of the house, of course, where you can go down. Now, the house itself is drawn pretty well. You know, each one of the rooms is detailed. There's Christmas decorations hung up. Everything looks pretty good. It looks pretty good. What you do in this game is one of the more bizarre uh you know play mechanics I've ever seen in a video game of this era. This is something that you might expect to see on the Fairchild Channel F, or maybe an Atari 2600 game, like an early Atari 2600 game. What you do in this game is you avoid the wet bandits. That's it. So the wet bandits are chasing you right from the get go. They're after you. Okay. And what you do is you run away from them. And as you go through the house, you pick up objects. Okay. And these objects represent the different traps that Kevin, unleashes on the bad guys in the movie. So you've got marbles, you've got Christmas lights, or those lights that they step on and it causes them pain. You've got the little cars, you've got the spider, all of this stuff. Okay. So what you do is you're just rolling around through the house. You're picking up these objects. I think you can pick up 3 or 4 at a time. And as the bad guys catch up with you, because the bad guys can go probably 3 times as fast as you can, you push the button and you drop the object. I think the A button drops objects and the B button picks objects up, although I might be confused about that. But anyway, that's sort of the mechanic. Okay. How do you win Home Alone? You win by avoiding the wet bandits for 20 minutes. Okay. So this game is a feat of endurance. You have to run around the house, you have to drop traps, and just avoid being caught by the wet bandits for 20 minutes. If you do that, you beat the game. That's the game. There are ways that you can avoid the wet bandits for longer periods of time. One strategy is that you can just sort of make loops on the outside of the house. So if you go up to the top floor, go out through the rope, go over to the treehouse, down and in the front, and just make continuous loops doing that, you can get by pretty well. There's also areas in the house where you can, for example, on the left side of the house, you can climb down the drain pipe. So there's tons of different areas where you can sort of make your escape. And one thing I'll give this game is that they really thought about that. It would be one thing if they made the house just sort of, one entrance and one exit and you're moving around through the rooms. But, being able to shimmy down the gutter or go across the rope, that's pretty cool. And the music is okay. It's just sort of a singular tune that plays, although the music does change when you go outside and you're going across the rope. But there's actually places in the house where you can hide out and you can rest, for like 5 minutes and not get caught. However, what comes to your mind as you're doing this is like, the best way to play the game is to not actually play the game. And then you run into this existential crisis on like, okay, I'm winning by not actually doing anything. And that's sort of a crappy feeling.
That's my mantra in real life.
So this is not a good game. This is one of the worst concepts of a game of all time because they didn't add anything to it. What they should have done is they should have said, okay, you need to avoid the wet bandits for this amount of time, but you also need to accomplish these 3 or 4 other things. Like you need to go to the basement and pour water on the thing. You need to set this number of traps. Then you need to call the police. You need to visit the treehouse for some reason. And if you do all of those things and you avoid the wet bandits for a much smaller time limit, like maybe like 5 minutes, then you can complete the game on like novice difficulty. And then as you move up through the difficulty levels, the game gets harder and you have to do more sort of intensive pranks to be able to get these guys. The way that this game works is nothing like that. The items that you pick up and put down, they look like they were picked up right out of a ZX Spectrum title. And that's nothing against the Spectrum, but it's just, that was the only way that they could render detail objects is by setting them on a single color, and then drawing them so they could be seen on the screen. It's very, very poor. Kevin himself bebops around like somebody that has some sort of ailment that allows him to not walk correctly. He does not look cool when he's walking. He looks pretty lame. I will say that his animation when he's going up and down stairs and up and down the ladder is better, but that's sort of it's small praise. It's small praise. So Home Alone gets a resounding F for me. Is way below average as a game for the NES. This is definitely a game that you should avoid at all costs.
Wow, coming out swinging.
Anybody else played this for the NES that would try to defend it? No, I'm guessing these games weren't widely played. I had a look at this boat, and it's not. It doesn't look that good. I would agree with you. It doesn't look that good, but I mean, I don't know. It looks. I mean, graphically, it looks okay. I don't think you had to bury it like that, but I mean, otherwise, the gameplay looks like crap. So yeah, I think I agree.
And again, I want to reiterate that the graphics are not bad. The graphics are average. Okay, they're not spectacular, but they're not horrible. But can you name any other game where you have to do the same activity for 20 straight minutes to be able to complete it? I mean, 20 minutes is just such an extraordinarily long amount of time to do anything.
I would say air hockey and bar games.
Well, yeah, that's fresh on your mind, isn't it?
No, I've played this. It's it is
much
repetitive.
the same thing in that.
Yeah.
Good stuff, Boatster.
All right, so that is the NES version of Home Alone. Now we're going to move along to Cody for his port. Go ahead, Cody.
Well, I guess I got the other 8-bit title here. So, of course, the hotly contested battle between the NES and the Master System wasn't actually a thing, at least not in the United States, which is probably the reason that the Home Alone game on the Master System only came out in the UK, which I figured out when I couldn't get it running.
That will. There you go.
I got my my Master System here, and I got my EverDrive. And I got it right. I mean, it turned on, and all of a sudden there's pixels everywhere, and you literally are jumping around. I'd hit pixels, and you die, and nothing was making sense. I went online, and I'm sure when I bought my EverDrive, I probably knew this at the time, but there's literally only 2 games that the EverDrive would not render correctly, and this is one of them.
Oh my gosh!
And I think when I purchased it, I probably said, "That's fine. I'll never play Home Alone on the Master System."
Here we are.
Little did you know,
thank
Cody.
the Amigos for setting this up. This game was created by Probe Software, which did mostly, at least at the beginning, apparently, I did a little research here, did mostly Master System and Genesis ports of arcade games. And then they were sucked up into Acclaim in 1995 and became Acclaim London Studios eventually. They also did ports like Outrun and Mortal Kombat, so they weren't like a terrible game, porter or anything. They got some good titles under their belt.
They haven't. They were a terrible game porter, Cody.
Were they?
Yeah, they did a lot of 8-bit stuff like Commodore 64 and Spectrum, and yeah, they were responsible for some really stinkers.
From destroying some really high name titles. Well, I played Mortal
Almost
Kombat.
as bad
That
as
might
Tier
not have been
Text, but
Gotcha.
sorry, Cody, go ahead.
Yeah, that's fine. Hey, so when I turned this thing right off the bat, rough start. Once I even got the correct ROM on an emulator working correctly, what I noticed is the music starts, and then halfway through, it like starts speeding up. Like once a certain screen goes away, it speeds up. And while you're playing the game, the music like changes speed regularly, like as processes change. So that's a little discerning. But the title screen alone was very uninspired. It is literally just the words Home Alone and a picture of Kevin and a white background. So I already know I was in for a rough game here. Now, when the game starts, it has these little, if you want to call them cutscenes, cut images that were just straight up screen grabs from the movie that they probably ran through some kind of program to make them pixelated. And they look kind of like a barely colored version of like the Game Boy camera. Remember that thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're not pretty. But of course, every time you start a game, you see Kevin with his BB gun. It says, you know, this is it. Don't get scared now. And every time you get caught by a robber, you have to wait for a loading time. And then all of a sudden the cut screen comes up again, probably for the 50th time of, what is it, Marv and what's the other guy? The wet band, Harry. Marv and Harry holding you up on the door, you know, asking, what are we going to do with him, Marv? You see these cutscenes a lot. Let me just put it that way. And you have to wait for them. And that was a little discerning. When I got to the actual game, it actually looks pretty good. The Master System has really bright colors. You know, I've always liked the color palette a lot better than the NES, and this does a good job of showing it. The actual sprite of Kevin and the bandits don't move like humans, but everything else on the screen looks really good. It actually controls fairly well, but kind of like the NES game. And I know a lot of these games are kind of inspired by the same. Maybe the movie studio went ahead and so we do a thing on the Pixel Guide, and we do Battle of the Systems. We take games that have the same name. Sometimes we've kind of veered away from it. They have the same name, but they're made by different companies. And you can see they were inspired by the same design choices, but they're made by different companies at different times, so they're completely different games. I could see how the studio might have told all these companies, hey, we're going to do a side cutaway dollhouse, as Boat put it, and you're going to run around trying to escape the bandits, and they're going to try to steal everything, and you're going to try to save your family jewels. And then the companies made
the family jewels.
Well, that happens in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
You know, one thing I'll say about this game is I'm watching a playthrough video of it here is that Kevin can traverse, like you said, they don't move like humans in this game. Kevin can traverse from floor to floor like he's Mappy going through the floors of his house. I mean, he can jump down from floor to floor at any point by just sort of breaking through the fourth wall. It's very interesting.
Yeah, so by pressing down and jump, you literally just jump through the floor to the floor below you. However, Bo, do you see him walking upstairs at any point?
No.
Well, when you see him walking upstairs, take note of how you literally walk upstairs at about a third the pace of walking anywhere else in the house. Meanwhile, the bad guys still walk up the stairs at normal speed.
I see that now. In the game, the actual house, the Arnold house itself is very bizarre looking. You've got some candy striped wallpaper. It almost looks like the house from Maniac Mansion rather than a house that anybody would live in.
Absolutely. So what's interesting about this, I mean, the gameplay, let's get out of the way real quick, is Marv and Harry are in there, and they're trying to find treasures. On the first few levels, you only have one treasure in the house, and they're trying to get it. And once they get it, they'll start walking down to the bottom left of the screen. And if they get out that way, they steal your jewel and you lose. So they're not trying to get Kevin in this game. They're trying to get the treasure. And then as things get longer, the house magically changes shape, because apparently every time you wake up, your house physically has either more stories, or your living room and your kitchen are in a different place. So that's interesting. One way you can, without going up the stairs, you can find a sofa or a chair, and you can bounce on it to bounce to upper levels. There's also a chute, kind of like in the movie, where you go down the like the dumbwaiter chute. Mm-hmm. So you can go from the top story to the bottom story. And ultimately the goal for you is to get to the treasure before they do and go to the safe and lock it in the safe. So that all makes sense. And the gameplay is what it is. It's not terribly exciting. In fact, it was kind of so mediocre, I'd actually rather it be worse. But what's really interesting is the first 3 levels are in your home. And then I guess the developers got bored because the next 3 levels are in somewhere called the Fun House, which instead of the dumbwaiter, you've got like a mouth that you go in and you go down to the bottom. There's large telephones that you can bounce on, which makes no sense. Typically there's a dog running around. Now it's like a balloon dog. And then they get weirder and weirder. The next levels after that are called the greenhouse, which is more of a it almost looks like a hotel entryway with like large water fountains and like hanging plants. Eventually you make it to a powerhouse. I don't remember the powerhouse in the movie, but now we're in an industrial powerhouse. You go through a haunted house. And then after you get past that point, I'm like, great, the game's probably almost over. No, you get to go back through all of them again. There's 30 total levels in this game. But what I noticed, the main issue with this game for me was, first of all, even when it worked well, it was kind of ho-hum. It was kind of boring. But you would really often find yourself in situations where things are walking towards you faster than you can escape. And you're basically hoping the animation of you picking up something or putting it in the safe happens before something hits you. Because you start that safe animation, you've got like a half a second and someone's already walking up the stairs and coming at you. I got pretty frustrated trying to play this game. I think you really just have to learn how to memorize where every treasure is on every map. And by the end, you're trying to get like 8 treasures or something. I didn't make it past, I think, level 7 out of 30. So I had to watch a playthrough where someone actually stomached this whole game. So for me, it was really, oh, and I forgot to mention this too. I guess in later levels, about after you play 20 levels, you actually have to dig through drawers and stuff, trying to find treasures that are hidden. Either drawers hidden in like drawers or cupboards or chests, things like that, which they don't explain at the beginning of the game. So you always have the ability to dig through things, but you never find anything until like level 20. So I think there's actually a lot here. There's a good, like the bones are good, but they definitely could have made some choices, some gameplay refinements that would absolutely help it become a better game. I looked at kind of all kinds of other review magazines and things, and they kind of listed it around a 50 to 60% game, which is really what it is. It's good enough to not be terrible, but it's not good enough to want to play, which makes it even worse to me. It's like, I'd rather watch a bad B movie than just a bad, boring movie.
Yeah.
And this is a bad, boring. It's a bad,
I'm not going to
boring
lie to
movie.
you, Cody. This game looks like Mega Man 2 compared to the NES version.
It sounds so much more complicated than mine. That's what makes
The
it
color
sound.
looks good. The color and the graphics look good.
So what's interesting, Cody, is that seems more like a platformer. Is that right? It kind of got more the platformer genre rather than some of the other ones where you've got different cutscenes and all that sort of thing. It's just more of a straight up platformer, is it?
Yeah. It's got the cutscenes in between every time you die, which kills the flow. It's like a platformer mappy kind of a thing where you just kind of go through different levels. The other thing I will say where the NES game looked more interesting to me is that you can get different traps and lay them down and do things like that. And here, the only thing you can get to ward off anything is one place in the level. There are going to be 3 BBs. So you load your gun with 3 BBs, and that's all you get the entire level. Not to mention, Eric, there is on every one of these levels, there is a time limit.
Not good.
Your favorite.
Yeah. So you can lose by taking too long. You can lose by them touching you. You can lose by them grabbing the treasure and leaving with it. If they do grab the treasure, you have to shoot them with the BB gun so they drop it. They don't drop it in front of you. They drop it like 3 stories up. And then you're already down to like 7 seconds. So you're done.
All right. Well, that is it's certainly a different type of game. And that's what I was hoping, is that we wouldn't get just carbon copy ports on all these different systems.
Yeah.
It seems like this was different enough to make it worth discussing.
The Master System always get like, they're never powerful enough to get like a straight port, but often their little wacky ports end up being pretty good of different stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, their port of Outrun destroys the Amiga
Well, I
version.
mean, yeah,
absolutely
listen,
destroys it.
no kidding. But I mean, I'm just saying, I like when they have to remake stuff to fit it on a machine, because you get different people in there and they're like, listen, We're not even going to try to do what they do on every other system. Let's try to do something remotely different. And I do appreciate that about the Master System.
Yeah. All right. Any final thoughts on the Master System version of Home Alone before we move on?
I think I've said it all.
All right. Well, we're gonna stroll on over to the Best Coast and talk to. Actually, I guess we're still on the. We're going from sea to shining sea. How far apart do you and Eric actually live physically, Cody? How many minutes drive?
Roughly 3 miles.
3 miles. Okay, so we're just going down the street.
That's about like me and you, Boat.
Yeah, that's right.
And Brent.
So let's saunter on down the avenue to talk to Eric about his game. Eric, what you got?
So we, I always assume doing the Pixel Gun show. I did the port on the Game Boy version, and listening to your other versions, which I didn't really check out many of the other versions, but the Game Boy version is different. And I think they had to make it different because of the screen real estate. Obviously it's on a mobile system, the Game Boy. It is more of a flick screen kind of platformer where every time you go to a different part of you go left or right, you get a different screen. So you're not having a scrolling level. But ultimately, the goal of the game, well, first I should say this game was made by THQ as well, and it came out in North America in '91. The graphics aren't bad for Game Boy. I mean, the reason I wanted to do this game was I haven't played a ton of Game Boy games, so I wanted to jump into a platform that was something fresh for me that I hadn't played a ton of. So I started that, and so the game basically is it does the same theme on all these other Home Alone ones, but you are trying to collect items. So this is an exploration game. You are looking around for items, and some of them are evident. They're in the hallways, they're on the floor, and some of them are hidden in places like behind pictures on the wall, or they're in drawers. And in the game, you press up to look inside of items and then when you find something, it jumps out of the item. So like you go up to a picture, you press up and it will pop out, and you go and you collect items, and you can only carry so much in your bag. And so you going around and you're collecting items. Now I'm glad Cody brought up the time limit thing. One thing immediately that I liked about this game is there's no time limits. And in an exploration game, if you have a time limit, you have lost. You do not put time limits on exploration games, period. So luckily in this one, there's no time limit. So there are 4 wings in the house, and the goal is really to look for items. And when you fill up your bag, you have to take it to a laundry chute. You drop the items into the laundry chute, and you keep looking until you've exhausted all the number of items you're looking for on each level. Each level is called a wing of the house, and there are different wings, and you go and you find it, and all along there are enemies, and you go through the enemies, and it then becomes a light puzzle game. You have to figure out how to pass the enemy without him touching you. And if he touches you, you lose. You have, I think, 3 bars of a hit bar. And then when you lose that, you lose a life, and then you have to go on. Now, in the game, you also get power-ups. Power-ups will pop out. There's a slice of pizza that if you collect 8 pieces you get an extra life. If you get a cookie, you regain 1 of the hit points, which you have 3 hit points. If you get a pizza box, you gain 1 extra life. And if you get the aftershave, you temporarily have invulnerabilities to all the enemies. And you basically fill up your bag, which is usually about 8 to 10 items. You do the laundry chute, you go and you find more. And then when you're done, you get a key and you go into the room, into the basement, where there's some challenge down there. And in these challenges, it was somewhat like Pitfall. You have to like time your jumps. It then becomes more of a Pitfall kind of thing where you're not, firing at things, which I should mention, you do have weapons in this game. You have a water pistol, a slingshot, a baseball, and a BB rifle. And when you find these, you can hit the select button on the Game Boy to switch between different weapons. So anyway, once you do that, you unlock it. And this is what threw me when I was first playing this game before I read anything about it, is then you fight like this giant ant, and you have to defeat him as a boss. And then then there's one level that has ghosts in it. And I'm like, what does this have to do with Home Alone? But once I read through the manual, I read you're facing his nightmares. So you're
Honey, I Shrunk Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah. So you basically you find his nightmares, and then you fight his nightmares, and then the ultimate goal is to beat the bad guys. And then there's one final boss, which is the what is it? The heater radiator thing, the boiler thing, and
Well,
it
yep.
comes to life and it's shooting fireballs at you. Now, as if anyone has listened to Pixel Guide knows, I don't beat a lot of games. I'm not a super great gamer at all, but I'm going to tell you guys, and this might shame me a bit. I actually enjoyed this game.
Oh,
I settled down with a couple of pints of stout. Cheers.
yeah.
And that's really smoothed it over for me. And this has 4 wings, and I spent about 2.5 hours on this game, and I got game over a couple of times, but I ended up finally beating the game.
I think that deserves a round of applause.
Yes.
Thank you.
Outstanding. I guarantee you're probably the only one that pulled that trick.
You know, it's funny.
Home Alone game.
It's funny because I'm watching this right now, and this really looks like a game. You know, like it looks like, which is
high praise. High praise.
And there's something about one of the things that I loved about Game Boy games as a kid growing up that wasn't very good at games is a lot of times they did dial back the difficulty some from the console counterparts. I noticed this with there was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game called Fall of the Foot Clan, and I could beat that game, and I couldn't beat Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the NES. No way.
No one can.
It's a tough one.
Yeah. And so, in this game, it looks pretty good. The graphics are, for a Game Boy game, of course, they look great. I like the idea of you sort of mounting this pile of treasures, in the basement, dropping them down the laundry chute. I like any game that allows you to amass a fortune, somewhere off screen, sort of like Nest DuckTales. So that part appeals to me. It looks like it's a lot more platforming than the Master System or the NES versions of the game, which is, it adds variety to gameplay. So yeah, I'm gonna have to check this one out.
It's actually pretty good, and it now when it gets to level 3 and 4, it does ramp up the difficulty quite a bit. Level 1 and 2, I could see like a kid getting this game back in the day and like going, oh wow, this is fun. What level 1, 2, level 3 and 4 get pretty tough. But I mean, kids back then, you'd get a game every 3-4 months, so you could really sink your teeth into this one. I gotta say, I mean, I enjoyed this game. I spent some good time with it, and I mean, listen, it's not a great game. It's definitely not a game that you should rush out and buy. But if you have it on an Evercade and you want to waste a couple hours, you can do a lot worse than this game.
There you go. Ringing endorsement.
Yeah.
Still, I mean I like the flip screen stuff. I guess I'm old school. I always like that. It looks. I will say, the Game Boy was a lot like the Master System. They also always have to redo it for themselves, and sometimes that's a horrible disaster. But this actually looks, like you said, it looks like an actual game. So
yeah,
I liked on the video. I like the opening burglar. The guy, he looks like Boris from Rocky and Bullwinkle. One of the bandits.
All right. Well, thank you, Eric. That was, I really, again, I'm sort of shocked at how different all these are.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we're going to be ultra shocked with our next guest. We go from the least graphically capable system to the most with Flack's choice. Flack, why don't you tell us about your port of Home Alone?
I'm going to start off by saying I really wanted to play Home Alone for the Commodore 64, but there is no port for the Commodore 64. So I went online and I found what I thought was the worst version of Home Alone. And I'm going to tell you, by the end of this review, I'll have all of you agreeing that this is the best version of Home Alone.
Wow.
This is Home Alone for the PlayStation 2.
Yeah.
You may not have played this because this is a UK only release.
What's with the UK only releases of Home Alone? It was Home Alone like a massive hit. Tim, was it huge in the UK?
I wouldn't say it's any bigger than anywhere else, I guess, but yeah, it was a successful film over here.
Okay.
It was so successful in the UK that this game was released in 2007. Alone was released in 1990. So I did a little math. That would be like someone releasing a movie or a game right now for Too Fast, Too Furious or Finding Nemo. It's a pretty big gap to grab onto a license. So it was published by Blast Entertainment. Blast Entertainment says that they specialized in developing and producing content based on family-oriented licenses from movies, TVs, and classic characters. Some of their most popular games were Bob the Builder Festival of Fun, Mr. Bean's Wacky World, Casper's Scare School, and Garfield Lasagna World Tour. But Blast was the publisher. The developer was Coyote Developments. Their top listed games that they developed include Bratz Forever Diamonds, Flintstones Bedrock Racing, and Mary Kate and Ashley Get a Clue. Now, I want you to think, you know, all these Home Alone games have things that are similar. And when you boil down Home Alone to its essence, there's two words that come to mind: locking doors. So the key, what this game is all about, is essentially locking doors. That's not true. You also lock windows. This game is presented in this somewhat strange top-down kind of isometric view of Kevin's house. Now, you can play one of four kids right off the bat. You can play Kevin or Kelly. You can be Carl or Carla, and they all have slightly different specs. There are also 6 different burglars, so it's not just the 2 from the movie that you know. You have Harry, Ernest, Vinny, Marv, Mac, and Bob, who collectively I call the Dum-Dums, because they are not smart enemies in this game. Now,
is there a chance those guys are from Home Alone 3? I haven't seen that one yet.
3, 4, possibly. I think there's a 5 somehow.
All right.
I mean, so they may be other generations. Fortunately, they all use the exact same. Well, there are 2 different character models. So half of them look like Marv and half of them look like the other guy. So as you can see the video, if you can see this, you have this isometric view. There are 5 different levels in this game, and there are all these things that you have to pick up inside the video there. Some of them are toolboxes, and the rest of them are weapons. And so the goal is every level has 2 parts. The first part is you have to go around and get toolboxes and use them to seal the perimeter. So you have to go close all the outside doors and windows on the outside of the level. The second half of the level is you have to basically kill all of the burglars. Now, if you kill a burglar while the doors and windows are not locked, they just respawn and they come right back in the house. So there's really no sense in killing the burglars before you've sealed off the house. And these, I mean, these guys are really dum-dums. They just kind of patrol the level. They walk around. Now, if they see you, which is basically line of sight, if you're in front of them, they will start running after you and you have to run away. And it's pretty easy to lose these guys, like walk around a corner and they kind of forget where you are. All the doors on the interior of the level are like those swinging doors in a bar. So you just walk through doors and you can walk around and lose these. Also, all the weapons and the toolboxes constantly regenerate. Every time you get them, if you just move off the screen and come back, they're there again. So there's really no shortage of these things to pick up. Now, the weapons. Let's talk about the weapons that you can get. There are weapons you can pick up that you can throw forward in a straight line, and those are flower bombs and irons, which if you've seen the movie, you know why they have those. There are also lobbing weapons, which are bowling balls and tarantulas. And when you use these, like when you use the tarantula, it scares the burglar and then they run until they run into something, which causes damage. And then there are weapons that are dropped weapons. You drop them behind you as you're running away. So there's a oil can, which makes a little oil spill. So I don't know why they've brought in the weapon from Spy Hunter into Home Alone, but there's also glue. There is a spring, which does very little damage, but the most important one is a firecracker, and you could drop that behind. Now, these guys, the dum-dums, do not avoid the things that you drop. So if you just drop a firecracker and stand on the other side of it, they come after you and they run into it. But again, there's no point in killing the dum-dums before you go around and seal up the perimeter of the level. Now, there are 5 different levels. There's a garden, there's the basement, there's a ground floor, there's the first floor, and then there's an attic. And each one of these has 2 different levels. So there are 10 levels altogether. As you progress through the game, each level has more windows and then more dum-dums that will chase you around. So really the only way to get killed in a level is to get chased by 2 of the dum-dums at the same time. Like if they're like you run into one or you're running from one and run into the other. Now, I did play this quite a bit. I had to play it through emulation. My PS2, I couldn't play it. And there are a few bugs in this game, and one that I had happen twice, and I didn't play this that long, so it makes me think this is pretty easy to do, is to get one of the dum-dum burglars caught. Like they'll get caught on the terrain, stuck in a doorway or stuck on something, and they'll just sit there and run in place. And then none of the other dum-dums will chase you. So I guess the game is programmed so only one person chases you at a time. But once that guy gets stuck, all the other guys just kind of wander around like weird zombies. It's kind of strange when you actually see it in play. So that's kind of the gist of this game. Now, I literally picked this when I went to Moby Games. I looked at the different ones. I went on YouTube, and I know Aaron did a stream of Paperboy for the Nintendo 64. And I thought, this literally looks like when the Paperboy goes home. I mean, it's just
it looks very similar. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, people that wander around. The closing of the doors and the windows, there's a little bar that shows up over it, and it felt to me a lot like those Lego games where you go around and you have to build something and you just hold down a button and Legos build. It's like that. So once you have a toolbox, you just go to a door, hold down a button, and then the little bar goes across, and then eventually it says, okay, it's locked. I made a mistake the first time I played by not locking the doors in order, and you have to go up to each door to see if it's locked or not locked. So if you don't do them in some sort of systematic order, you will spend the entire time walking up to doors that are already locked. So you kind of just, either work clockwise or counterclockwise or whatever. So I'm not going to lie. I picked this game because it looked terrible and because it literally looked like it had nothing to do with Home Alone. I mean, there are some burglars, in the video right now that's playing, you are trying to keep the burglars out of your walled garden for some reason. Like, it's very strange, but when I played it, it was actually kind of fun. I did enjoy the fact that you have to run around. Some of the weapons appear in rooms or parts of the house that are dead ends. So you kind of have to be careful. It's easier, it's easy to get yourself trapped in a way. So you kind of have to run around in circles and pick things up. The actual gaming controls are not that difficult. You use a button to flip through your inventory, so you pick which weapon you want to use at that time, and then the other button uses that. So, if a guy's chasing you, you flip through to firecrackers if you have them, or springs or whatever. I did find some online instructions that said some of the weapons were only available to some of the characters. So I don't know if that's they're equal weapons, only the girls can only use the bowling ball while the boys can only use the tarantula. They're the same weapon, basically, with different graphics. So I guess that's to get some sort of replayability. But the other thing that I'll throw in is that, unlike, I think, most of the games that will be mentioned today, this version of Home Alone also offers multiplayer split screen.
Yeah.
So if you've played through, you have to, on the one player, you can only go back and start on levels that you've already beat. So if you've only beat the first level, when you jump in, you can only go on that level. But on the multiplayer, it does split screen gaming, which everybody loves. And you can start on any level you want. And so you and your sister or whoever, these other people, I couldn't find any other mention of these kids in any of the Home Alone movies. So I don't know where they came from. But for some reason they're trapped in your house with you. So you can do split screen, and you can take on these goofball burglars that kind of walk around like zombies until they see you. So
one thing, you beat the game.
I watched somebody on YouTube beat the game. I did play it for a while, and it was kind of fun. And then you get to, the first level, I think there are like 10 doors that are locked, and there are 3 dum-dums. And so it's not that hard. You go around and you're like, and by like level 3 or 4, I think on one level, there's 28 doors. And I thought, who can afford a house with 28 doors and not an alarm system? Like, I don't know what's going on over there at the old McAllister household,
Well, another thing that I've noticed about the McAllister household, and I apologize for calling them the Arnolds before, of course, Kevin Arnold, Fred Savage on the Wonder Years, is that Kevin lives in a house that appears to be, 85% manicured garden and 25% weight room. Where are the other rooms of the house, and what? It just seems weird that they wouldn't actually make most of the game be about unlocking and locking. I mean, it's fine if you want to make a game about locking and unlocking doors and windows. Listen, man, nothing beats a house for having lots of windows and doors. It's one of the things that houses do best. So why not just make the whole game a big house, and then you can populate the rooms with all kinds of different, furniture and stuff like that, like the other games.
But there is a ratio of rooms to doors and windows. So, I mean, by level 4 or 5, you think, I've already seen 150 rooms in this house. It's like some kind of twisted nightmare that this kid is stuck in, where he's just in a house that's like a Twilight Zone. Like, behind every door there's more rooms and stuff.
And every time he wakes up, his house is different. I've also noticed in all these games, I don't remember in the movie them living in like an ultra mega mansion, but apparently in all these games they are assumed to live in some huge enormous mansion. Is that not correct? I want to see a game where they actually are realistic and you're running away from robbers in a like 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, like rental house.
Well, to be fair, their family was huge.
Yeah.
So they had to have a pretty good size house.
Yeah. Well, Black, that is certainly a game for the PlayStation 2.
That game was universally panned. Everywhere I went when I was looking for video for it, everyone was like, look at this thing, PS2, Home Alone. And I kept watching. I was kind of like flacked. I was like, this looks okay. I mean, I also already played mine, so there was also that. But I mean,
the other thing to consider too is not only was this a PS2 game about a 17-year-old movie, it was a PS2 game that came out when the PS3 was already out about a 17-year-old movie.
Good point.
In Eric's review, when he was talking about how you're in Kevin's nightmares and things like that, it made me wonder if those are levels that were intended for some other game or something, and then they just thought, well, I'll throw that in. And when I was playing this, I thought this would be an okay game without the Home Alone license. I mean, it could just be a tower defense kind of a style game. Like the fact that you say Home Alone, like, some of you guys, your games you've shown to have screens from the movie and that fancy Home Alone logo. Like, this game doesn't really leverage any of that stuff, and
you can see them saying, hey, I lost the license for Home Alone. Let's just make this a Freddy Krueger game. And just slap your sprites in there, right?
It could certainly be any kind of license. Yeah. So I thought, they didn't, and especially, I mean, they go, it's a Home Alone game where you could be 3 kids that were not in Home Alone. Odd choice.
Yeah.
All right. So we move on now. Thank you very much, Flack, for that review of the PS2 port. Now we move on to the half of ARG Presents that consistently has good, intelligent things to say. The Brent.
Is it my turn? But what the hell, Boat?
I apparently won Christmas because I have a game that's almost a game and has to do with Home Alone. So I don't know how I did this, but I pulled it off. I am looking at the DOS port of Home Alone, developed by Manley and Associates.
Ooh.
Ever heard of them? Nope.
Yeah.
So, and who published it? Capstone Software. This was done by 2 people. Ivan Manley, who is the one of the main head honchos of Manley and Associates.
What a name, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm Manley. Think about it.
These are my associates.
I'm Manley.
And Dave Albert.
Not as good.
It had a few programmers in there too. So this, like I said, my version is actually like the movie. You start out and it's 8 p.m. and you know the burglars are coming and you have to prep the house. And it is all about running around, gathering items, and then placing them spy versus spy style, so that, you know, somewhere that the trap would logically make sense. If it's you gather up all the Christmas ornaments and you put them on the floor, or you gather a bowling ball and you shove it in the door frame, and you've got the tar and you put it near the stairs, it all makes sense, right? And if you've seen the movie, because it won't let you put a trap anywhere. If you've seen the movie, you've got a leg up, because you know that the hot iron thing that he puts on the doorknob, it has to go on a doorknob. So you put it on the front door doorknob. And the house layout on mine, it's a side-scrolling game that does have flip screens, but they're long flip screens. So you can actually scroll the screen for a fair amount, 3 or 4 screens worth, before you have to either go through a doorway or go up a set of stairs or whatnot. So you're gathering your items and you're setting your traps. And at 9 p.m., they come in. The Wet Bandits break in. And they break in at 2 different entry points. Like, one is at the main entrance and one is at the basement, I believe. And they're gunning for you, right? And you've got the screen. It's in a widescreen setup where you have your viewpoint and what you're seeing in the room that you're in, and you have 2 screens at the top of each burglar, and you can't actually see what they're doing so much as it has an animation of them walking. And what's awesome is if they hit one of your traps, right, it animates it. It doesn't show the trap go off, but it shows their reaction to it. If they fall down, or if they get burnt, or if something lands on their head, or the tarantula attacks and they have to run away, all that's animated up in the screens in the upper left and upper right hand corner. So you're running around the house, you've got all these traps set up, and you can get your BB gun for a little extra defense. And now it's all about steering them into your traps, because they don't know where you are per se, right? So if you were up on the top floor, and it has the top floor, the attic, a main bedroom floor that mostly has all the bedrooms and the bathrooms, the main floor that's like the kitchen and the living room, and then the basement, which is just one big long room that has a bunch of stuff. So you run around. If you set all your traps and you run up to the top floor, they hit tons of traps on the way. It's awesome seeing their animations and they're falling down and all this stuff. But the problem is you have to hit them with 10 traps each. Each trap does 5 damage to them, and you have to score 50 damage to incapacitate the burglar. So if you just hide in the attic and the attic has no escape, you're screwed, because they were eventually going to get to you, and they wouldn't have hit enough traps, and they're going to capture you, and it's over. And they really set the scene, right? Because they have clips, digitized pictures from the movies, and it's all the most important scenes. His hands over his cheeks, him standing in his battle gear with his BB gun, and it all sets you up for this awesome gameplay experience. And you're setting the traps and you're doing all this stuff, and the timer hits and they're coming after you, and you have to jump over your own traps. When you're setting the traps during the timer phase, you can't set off your own traps. But when you're trying to maneuver them back into the traps, if you hit a trap, it sets it off. And you can only set up 20 traps, and you can shoot the BB gun 3 times. This does 5 damage. So if you set off more than 3 of your own traps, you cannot win. Game over.
Now, you can't actually die by your own traps, though, right?
You can't die. No, it sets the trap off, and your guy goes like, oops, or, oh, he gets stunned for a second, but that's it.
Okay.
So here's a fun game. Sounds great. Graphics are good. They're nice and colorful. The sprites are of decent size. things that look like Christmas bulbs or robots or tarantulas look like what they're supposed to. The animation is fluid enough. It's not perfect, but it's okay. The sound is not great, but it's okay. Then the controls hit. And I do not know what these people were thinking. You first off, can you change the control scheme? Yes. You can set your keys. However, to do so, you have to exit the program, edit config files, and this is what it says in the manual to do, right? So no one's going to be doing this. No normal person is going to be opening config files and setting up keys like that. It's not going to happen. So the keys that are default in the game, you've got your arrow keys to move. Makes sense. The space bar makes messages go away. Like if it has a prompt that says you have too many items or whatnot. Your inventory is controlled by picking up an item is F1. Using an item is F3. Cycling through your items is F2. And to jump, you hit tab. Who hits tab in a game? So I guarantee most people who've played this and given it just horrible reviews have sat down, tried to play it, not knowing the keys, and just struggled mightily. Oh, and to shoot the BB gun, I think it is the enter key on the numpad. I might be wrong about that, but it's something stupid. And the game itself is okay. It's not gonna. They could have made it better. It would have been more awesome if you could set traps after they're already in the house. You can't do that. You only have your prep time to set stuff up. It could have been made better if the traps would have made a little bit more sense. You drop a lot of stuff just on the ground. And I think if you should be able to set something on the ground, you should be able to do it anywhere, but it doesn't let you. It has to be in a specific spot. The game is so close to being fun and entertaining, and it is absolutely ruined by this horrible control scheme that is obviously thought up in the minds of madmen. Also, the game is ridiculously hard. It's easy to play, which is nice, because when you are picking up items and putting them down and managing your inventory, all that flows fine. But actually winning the game means that each of the wet bandits has to hit basically all your traps. Not going to happen. I tried and tried and tried and tried and was never able to get more than 40 damage on one bandit, and the other guy had like nothing. But the game is entertaining. It is very true to the movie. Very, very true. And it is outside of the realm of what you would normally expect to be playing for a Home Alone game. Would I buy this? No. Would I recommend playing this? Yes, I would. Yes, I would. Take the time, go into the config, and change those key bindings. But it's a playable game. It's a very playable game, and being able to go through the laundry chute to get down to the basement quickly and allows you to maneuver around like that. You're going up and down staircases. Thumbs up. I think this is a very playable game, and I can't imagine that the Amiga port is too far from this. I guess we'll hear about that, but I really had fun with this.
I think it's also impressive that the house is the right size. It has the appropriate number of windows and doors.
Yes.
So I'm noticing.
Yeah, the house is actually, it's very well laid out. You never are like, this doesn't make any sense. Why did the kitchen go to like the attic? Everything works. It looks like they actually took the house from Home Alone to the best of their abilities and made it into a game. It is definitely, from what I've heard and seen, the most Home Alone version of Home Alone.
Now, Brent, was there an option to plug a joystick in there, like a Gravis pad or something like that?
I was able to do a joystick setup, but at least in my configuration, I was able to use the joystick to move, but I still had to use the keys for inventory and stuff like that.
So like a one-button joystick or something?
Yeah, exactly. And the button was not the button I needed it to be. So is there a way to manipulate all of these things and to get into that config file and really do it proper? Probably. But I know I couldn't figure it out. Now, granted, I didn't sit down and tinker with it. I got the controls as were and just kind of rolled with it after I figured it out. Also, the instruction booklet in this game is worthless. They have the code box where you look up the code to the copy protection. That's well done. But most of the manual is just like, good luck, sucker. So that's a part of it, of course, never going to be good for an old DOS game. But I thoroughly enjoyed this. I had a good time with it.
You know, I feel like the Brent might be taking a little dig at some of our other games, saying that that the house in his game was appropriate to the movie. But I'll just say that in my game and some of the other games, I don't feel like I had to lean on the license as a crutch to try to spin something that my game had nothing really to do with Home Alone.
Thrown down.
But
heaven forbid they use that license to its potential. Who knew?
I will say I played this version years ago, and I did take it out for a spin. And Brent does nail it that the controls are almost like somebody made a bet. Like, I bet you can't, like, you know, like a game of Boggle where you would like put all the keys on a keyboard and a thing and switch around. Like, I guess we'll use tab, you know, and things like that. But
it was definitely something where because you do the little hunt and peck thing when you find your new game, right? And you're trying to figure out what stuff does. And the end key instantly ends the timer. That's I've set all my trap. I just want the game to continue. With kudos for having that be a key. But I was hunting and pecking trying to figure out what was going on. I hit that key probably a half a dozen times. And I was just like, oh, I was like, all right, come kill me. Let's try it again.
I would say this version and possibly the Amiga version were the only two that made me feel nostalgia, and not necessarily for Home Alone, but for these systems. And in the DOS version, it's because the music, you get that ad lib kind of sound blaster music, and it kind of takes you back to that era.
I agree.
You know, Bo, you might as well just go ahead and let me go next, because my game is almost identical to Brent's.
Okay, man, sure.
The big difference is Brent's an idiot, and so I'm going to set everyone correct. Once again, this is why I do a show with the Brent, so I can make sure people get the facts. This game's
when mom and dad fight.
Well, I take off. This game's a dud. This game's a big old dud, my friends. I'm going to give you the scoop here. First of all, my game on the Amiga, and listen, this is the Amiga, the crown jewel of the 16-bits, the big dog. We need more than the DOS port, but this is actually ported from the DOS game. This thing came out in 91, a couple discs. Here's the thing. Everything Brent said is exactly the way it is in the Amiga version. You set the traps. You wait for the burglars to come stumbling after 9 minutes. You have to do 50 points of damage. That's all exactly the same. This is pretty much a direct port. He didn't bury this game enough, and so allow me, if I may, to bury this thing. The function key setup is idiotic. I submit to you the game Gods, which has a three block inventory plus an attack plus a jump. It's exactly like this game. The difference being that the Bitmap brothers were smart, and they sat down and figured out a way to make that inventory system work with one joystick and one button. These guys were like, screw it. We'll just have them maneuver with the joystick and then have their hands positioned over the function keys like some kind of idiot. It doesn't work, yo. You're jumping up in the air and hitting F1. Who does that? You know, what are we doing here? No good. The position of stuff, I mean, yes, is this like the film? It is. You take that little brat around the house, you get all that crap, and you try to butcher and kill these poor burglars who are just trying to earn a buck. The difference is the game is really freaking tough. Not only, I agree with Brent, it's almost impossible to get past the first level, but a couple times I would be like, say, in the wrong spot, and then when the time ran out, the guys would have me trapped, and you're screwed. The only weapon you've got to protect yourself is the BB gun, and of course, you have to hit the enter button to fire the bullets. You only get like 3 bullets. So basically, you're boned. Any way it goes. If these guys get you stuck somewhere, you're screwed. I thought the music sounded like they gave a monkey one of those old synthesizers you see someone playing at the mall and just let him pound out some keys. I don't know how the music is in the PC version, but I was appalled by the Amiga version's music, and I looked up the guy who did it just to humiliate him. His name is Tom McMail, and he McMailed this sucker in, if you know what I mean. McMail, this was his only credit on the Amiga. Good. Get him out of here. I didn't like his little jaunty tune. I don't know. It had nothing to do with the film. No good. The intro to this movie had some digitized graphics, and once you get once the timer runs out, it shows Kevin like in his battle stance with all his crap on. But I mean, it's not like this was some kind of. I read the back of the box. They were like digitized music and sound. Like this was a big deal. No, there were like 2 or 3 scenes of digitized music and sound, and that's it. Something else is once you finish the game, if you're so lucky to pull that trick, it just starts over. It's not like there's nothing else going on. I mean, the other games that we've talked about today, they sound so much cooler than this one. And this is the Amiga. I mean, what are we doing here? To me, this sounds like the old cheap port and we're done routine, especially when you consider they just took the exact same keys. They were, heck, the manual for the Amiga and the DOS version is exactly the same. A dud. I looked this thing up just to see what the luminaries, the brilliant people from the magazines had to say. Lemon gave this a 5.14, and Boat, you know how liberal the Lemon people are. When they're giving this thing a 5, you know it's dirt. Mm-hmm. The Amiga Computing gave it a 35. Our good buddies over at Amiga Joker, you know they don't screw around. The 31%, yo.
That's what I expected.
And Amiga Power, 48. No one was having this half-hearted attempt. I agree with Brent to a certain degree. There was a game here. There was something you could hang your hat on. I like the idea of setting traps for these guys, but even that methodology is lame. I mean, they don't look cool when they hit the traps. You know, like in the movies, I want to see some cut scenes and stuff. I want irons in the faces. I want guys stepping on Lego, all that crap. In this, you don't get that.
You know why you don't get it, Aaron?
I do.
Because they don't want to break the flow of gameplay with the cutscene. If you are in the room, you see them get burnt or you see them fall down. I know what's happened here. You've played this for 20 minutes, couldn't find the keys to do anything, and just went, well, I quit. Because I guarantee if you'd have put any time into this, you would have keep the tarantula on you. And then when you get cornered, throw the tarantula and they'll run away. Then you can leave. You have 3 shots because they don't want you to use the BB gun for direct damage. It's supposed to be a thinking man's platformer set in the Home Alone universe, or just a dumb thing to run around and set up some traps.
Now, wait a minute. You're calling this the thinking man's platformer?
Spoken
like a non-thinking man. This is not the thinking man's platformer.
No, this is the thinking man's platformer in the Home Alone universe.
Oh my gosh, no. I'm not buying that. That whole thing. First of all, I played this. I wish I'd spent 20 minutes on this disaster. I played this thing for a long time trying to get off the first level with these goofs.
There's 1 level. Why would there be more levels? You don't go to another house. You don't meet Tim,
let me get this.
Other
so you're still going to put it over? By the way, we both read this. You think I could have not figured out the keys and done anything? I had to look it up just like you did. That manual.
I found the keys.
That manual was solid gold money. Who's going to think that the function keys are going to be that important and the enter button and all this stuff? You're defending that? Hold on a second, the Brent.
No.
You're telling me when you jumped up in the air to retrieve those trap elements and hit F1, you're thinking to yourself, man, this is a quality game. Nothing spells quality like jumping up in the air and hitting a key.
The absolute first thing I said was the controls are horrible.
Yeah.
But the gameplay is okay. No. And I'm not saying this is the next super uber game. Let's all bow down to the Home Alone game. I'm saying this is a game based on the movie license.
I agree with that.
That captures the essence of the movie that everyone remembers. No one cares about the first hour where he's learning how to shop. Screw all that. It's all about.
That's true. I agree with that too.
It's all about setting up traps and going after the bad guys. And that's what this game does. It boils it down and to a 30-minute experience.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it needed to be.
Let me ask you, did you pay $50 for this game, Brent?
No one ever paid $50 for
Oh,
this game.
yeah, they did.
There's no
or
way this
pounds,
is $50.
if you will. And when you roll back to the hizzy and you throw this sucker in the old disk drive and you get 30 minutes of hot Home Alone action, you're not thinking to myself, my God, that was the thinking man's platformer. You're thinking to yourself, my God, I'm an idiot and this game screwed me. Thumbs down. Thumbs down.
If you go out to the store and buy a Home Alone game and expect the next Ultima or the next Elite Dangerous, come on.
Listen.
Give me a break. This is something you give little Timmy so he shuts up for an hour.
So what you're saying is you hate children. Is that what you're saying? Okay, I think we've established that, Boat. Did you hear this guy?
For that purpose, this gameplay, and you can, and everyone wants to go, oh, I remember that from the movie. Oh, I remember that from the movie. And that's what this game does, and it does it well.
I disagree. I think it's a dud, a big old dud. And I'm in lockstep with Amiga Joker. 31%, yo, it's crap. Boat, there you go.
Solid
All right.
6.
Well, I think all
Brent.
that can be said has been said during that exchange. So
I'm all sweaty and nervousy over here.
I'm hoping the Mega Drive can pull us out of the fire here.
I think the Delphi brothers here, they're each going to give a BB gun with 3 shots. And just do 10 paces and we'll see which version. And you know what's funny is
my house has built-in traps, so it works out.
I had a BB gun. I got a BB gun for my 10th birthday, which is way before when this movie came over, and it held 1,000 BBs.
Yeah,
like you had a funnel that you put them in and went all over the floor. So I don't know where this kid got a gun that only has 3 BBs.
I was the same way.
When I was about 12, I got shot with a BB gun in the neck. It only takes 1 BB. And let me tell you something. I didn't want to play anymore.
You only need 1.
I really cried a lot that day.
You weren't even involved.
I know.
For once in your life, you weren't the cause of my pain and misery.
Listen, you're the cause of mine right now. Move along to Tim, Boat.
Okay. Tim, you bring us our last Home Alone port of the evening with the Mega Drive version. Now, I don't want to give anything away, but this is widely supposed to be the greatest version of them all, which is why from the beginning I planned to have you go last. All of the way came before as a ruse.
You're cunning.
No pressure. No pressure.
Go for it, Tim.
How the heck do I follow that?
We can fight with you, Tim, if it makes you feel better.
Fight me. Oh man, well, in true Pixel Guidance style, and normally Eric takes this, I kind of like went on the dry statistics side of things with my run through. I just created a big boring sheet. Okay, so Home Alone on the Mega Drive or the Genesis for you guys. It came in the UK at the grand price of £39.99. Yes, people did buy it for that price.
Now, how much was that, Tim? Say it again.
£39.99.
Now, what is that in United States American dollars, if you guess?
Probably at the time, £1 million.
Okay, Brent, did you hear that? The Brent, it was $50. Thank you, Tim. Carry on.
So this game was a single-player game, none of that multiplayer shenanigans like the PlayStation 2. Now, this was unique as it was actually Sega themselves that I believe developed this title. I don't think THQ had any fingers in this particular pie. It's released in November 1993. So much like, I guess it's kind of amalgamation of some of the other games that we've trawled through. It's a kind of like a platformer. There's a bit of exploration in there. Not quite as detailed as the PlayStation 2 in terms of the greenery, but there's sort of like you start off the game anyway. Kevin must defend his neighborhood against the wet bandits, as we know. The idea is that you have 5 houses that you have to defend in your neighborhood from the wet bandits. Now, I've gone through sort of like some of the basics here. There's a title screen when you start the game, which gives you the standard Home Alone music, and you can probably see it running behind me here in a loop. When you start the game, you get an option screen, So unlike the PC version, you can actually change your controls on this one. So you've got the 3 buttons. Those 3 buttons control. So A, to lay a tire. Yes, that's actually a thing in this game. There is a button defined for laying a tire, whatever that means. I will just leave it there. B, to fire the particular weapon that you have in your hand at the time. And the weapon mechanic is actually one of the unique things in this game, which I quite like. So one of the only things I like in this game. And C allows you to jump. So you can change the options in the game on the title screen. So you can just sort of like flip the order around in there. The start button in the game brings up the inventory selection. So you can select the various different things within there that we'll get into in a minute. So again, on the title screen, we've got the copyright, what was it, 1992 by Sega, and all rights reserved by 20th Century Fox. So they've got to get all their usual credits in. So when you press start, like I say, you've got the option menu. On the option menu, apart from the changing the controls, you've also got the option whereby you can listen to the amazing tunes that are on this, and the sound effects. So it's got that traditional sort of like arcade style. You know, you can go through the different tunes in the game and that sort of stuff. So that's on the option screen. So when you actually get into the game, first thing you do is you start off. You are sat on a motorized sled. Yes. A motorized sled. Where this comes in, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there was any such thing in the film.
Home Alone 4, obviously.
Oh, good. Well, it's probably Home Alone 99.9. But yeah, so you sat on a motorized sled. This thing has a charge meter, so it's very relevant for me. So some of you may not know, but I'm into EVs. So I found that quite a bit funny. He's in an EV powered sled. So anyway, he needs to roam around this area on his sled across the snow, and you can pick up items. So he's just doing it now, actually, on the screen. That's rather convenient. You can pick up items. Now, the items are hidden in snowmen. Yes, it's actually, it's got the kind of getting that Christmas theme in there with a bit of snow and snowmen. So you run over the snowmen with your sled, and the snowman disappears, and underneath the snowman is various different items, so like a tire or just a bunch of snowballs that you can pick up, and that kind of like leads you into more into the mechanic of the game later on. So when I first played this game, I didn't have a single clue what was going on. Okay, I didn't look at the instructions or anything like that. I don't have the original of the game. Like Cody, I played it through my EverDrive, so just stuck it in and played it, and I had no idea what was going on with the game. You have the sort of like the standard HUD heads-up display, so you have like your score, your charge meter, how many houses you got, and randomly how many tires you've got. So I was just taking it as though I just got to go round, and maybe this particular level I just had to go around, knock all the snowmen over and pick up the items. I had no idea. Then all of a sudden it pops up this loot bar. So there's a bar on the screen and it says loot, and this just suddenly started going, this bar started going up, and then all of a sudden it popped up a message on the screen: the wet bandits have flooded your house, you have failed. Right. Okay, great. So what do I do now? So at that point, that was the first time I played it, and I'm like, okay, this game is obviously utter trash. I turned it off in disappointment. So eventually I went back to it, watched a couple of videos on YouTube, sort of like had a bit of more of an idea of the game, sort of like watched a couple of little walkthroughs and that sort of thing, and a brief review. So yeah, I got more into the game. So the idea is that you, the first part of the game is initially you've got to race around as quick as you can, pick up a few items, and then you've then got to predict which house. So this is, imagine you're playing this for the first time. You've got to predict which house the wet bandits are going to visit first. There is no, you start off in front of Kevin's house, so it turns out to be that one, I guess. So fair enough. So you've got to pick up the items, you've got to go into the house, and then when you enter the house off of your sled, you get presented with a screen. Now, you get like an overview, a map of your house, so like a little schematic. And then on the left-hand side, you've got some booby traps that you can lay down in the house. So again, kind of a bit like the PC version and some of the others. And you can lay those down in particular rooms. Certain items you can only do in door frames, and certain items you can actually put on the floor for the wet bandits to trip over. Now, what the idea is that you need to lace all of those houses as much as you can before the wet bandits start turning up. So you want to, the idea is obviously you want to do Kevin's house first, and then eventually you see their van appear from sort of like well off of the screen, and you're sort of like following them around and working out which house they are actually going to go first. And eventually you find out, yes, it's going to be Kevin's house. So yep, off you go into Kevin's house. So you've laid a few traps, and then you get into the house, and yes. So the graphics inside the house is functional. For a Mega Drive, I kind of would have expected a bit more. So the gameplay inside the house is you have to walk along, run along, jump along, whatever can make you try and go quicker in this game. And you have to obviously trip the bandits over and give them pain. This game is all about giving them pain.
I will say in defense, a lot of these games involve pain, sometimes to the player.
Yeah. So the wet bandits are the recipients of lots of pain within this game. So they fall over certain booby traps, they fall through holes in the floor that randomly appear, which you can also fall through. As you go through the different levels within each house, so again, these houses are quite sprawling affairs over 3 or 4 floors. So again, you can see it running a bit in the background at the moment. The interesting thing with the houses is they all have different designs. So you've got sort of like a mansion house, you've got a technological house, you've got I think it's like a country and western theme house or something like that. I don't know. But anyway, each of the houses have different themes. Each have different rooms. So you've got the basement, the lower floor, the sort of like the bedroom area. You can walk through different sections in the house. Now, where the game mechanic comes in here is to not only can you basically lay those traps down, but you can also, obviously, you've got the BB gun to start off with, which you start off with some basic ammo for that. And you can pick up items either outside or inside, which will then allow you to build new weapons, which is actually really cool. I quite like this mechanic. So once you've picked up certain items, now there are 3 specific things. So you need a platform, an operator, and some ammo. So the different things that you pick up. So for example, one of the weapons I managed to build was a pepper bazooka. So that is made up of, so the platform is the snow dryer, the operator is the balloons, and the ammo is the pepper. And I'm not even going to go into a Burger Time reference with peppers there, Cody.
Burger Time.
Just going to concentrate on this game. Now, again, I will say, Eric, I'm sorry, this does have the 20-minute timer, but that is the limit of the game, mercifully, on this.
I'm out.
That's all it takes.
So the 20, you've got to essentially defend each house, lay the traps, fall through holes in floors, jump, collect different weapons, that sort of thing, make the weapons, and try and survive for 20 minutes on the beginner level. Now, if you choose the expert level, yes, that's it. it actually doubles. You can double your pain in this game and go up to 40 minutes of pure endurance fun. No. So going back to what I was saying about the inside of the house, one of the things that's really annoying is that the wet bandits will pick you up. So if you run into them or they run towards you, they pick you up and they take you off into certain points in the houses where they've got pegs on the wall, and they literally peg you up on the wall. So you're there dangling with your little feet like this.
Man. It's a Dead
And
by
it's
Daylight.
the most annoying thing in the world. So they're standing there, and one of the wet bandits, and you've got the little safes on the wall, which they are basically stealing the loot out of. So you've got, I don't know, I think it's like 6 safes per house or something like that. So they're standing there wiggling, you know, trying to get into the safe, and you're standing there right beside them with your legs wiggling like this, trying to get off of the peg. And it's just crazy. So you're stood there, and there's nothing you can do. So eventually you fall off. Now the other thing is that if the wet bandits then cross your path while you're standing there wiggling your legs, then all of a sudden you fall down, and then they just put you straight back up. So yeah,
there's not a parent in this channel that hasn't daydreamed about doing that as a child. Just throwing that out.
I had no ideas, obviously, about doing that to Danica. I will say that now. Maybe. So anyway, that's the mechanic of the game, and I think you kind of get the idea from that. So you've just got to stall out the wet bandits for 20 minutes. As you go through each house, the idea is obviously to max out the pain meter for the wet bandits, and then you win that house, you take over, and they run out. So they then get in the car, or the van in this case, they move on to the next house, which hopefully you booby trapped. Now, I didn't actually manage to get the pain meter maxed out because I just kind of wanted to get this game over and done with. So I managed to hold them off in the first house for, I think, around about 12 minutes. And then I knew I now had another 4 houses after that. So I thought, well, I'm probably just going to do this anyway. So I followed them round into another couple of houses, and eventually they flooded, I think, 3 of the houses. So I had 2 houses left, and then that was it. Then the cops turn up, bust the wet bandits. Now, the scoring mechanic in this is interesting because with each house you either save or don't save, you get score based on what you do. So the booby traps that you lay, how many times you hit the bandits, and you get points for collecting things inside and outside the house. When you finish the game, you get to the end of the time, the 20 minutes, it then gives you a rating. So I didn't save any of the houses, although I managed to stall them out, so I had 2 houses left. So I thought I didn't do too bad, actually. But apparently on this, my rating was wimp at the end of it. So there we go. So that's the Mega Drive version. I think there is a game in there somewhere. And I can see kind of why, especially hearing some of the other Nightmares, that this one kind of got some of the better ratings. Now, there is a couple of magazines here over in the UK that gave this game some ratings. So we've got Mean Machine Sega. So they were quite a harsh reviewing magazine. So they gave it 43% overall, and this was their summary. Those expecting fun and excitement will be disappointed. Home Alone is a dull and tedious game with little going for it. And then Megatech is a magazine I used to read an awful lot. So this was in the November 1992. They gave it a bit more of a positive spin. And it's interesting that what Brent said is this kind of like is a game more for kids. So they said they gave it 70%, which I think was high praise indeed. I think you'll agree. And they said it's a fair game of the film, but it's best left to youngsters, really. So my take on it, I guess, it's a slightly playable game. I like the mechanics of assembling all the weapons. I think that was quite unique I don't think it was in any of the other games. Correct me if I'm wrong. So that was a nice feature on that. It was kind of, I guess, a first-party title with it being developed by Sega. One of the things that you do get at the end of the 20 minutes is you kind of get the credits for the game. So the programmers for this were Brian A. Rice, Chuck Baston, and I think they were either brothers or very strange random names to have together. So it's Mike and Rob McCool. If I had had to pay £40 for this load of dross back then, I would have been extremely disappointed and took it straight back for a refund. It's not really something that I would consider a fantastic game. It's playable, I guess, to an extent. There is something to it, but for £40 on the Mega Drive, there's an awful lot of other games that you can play other than Home Alone.
Is that the glowing review you were expecting there, Aaron?
Well, I mean, I hope that Brent was watching that. See, he sort of slammed that game, but that's a proper game with a bunch of different facets. Multiple levels long. I mean, that was a $50 game. We paid $50 and we got the El Dutto Grande. So yeah, you can shake your head.
I have a question with the weapon creation. Did it hold your hand? Did it say, get this, this, and this, and then make your weapon?
Not at all. No. The only thing it does do, I will give it some credit for this, is that if you pick certain items up and you go into your screen, it will auto match. So it will give you a suggestion of a weapon that you can make, basically.
That's
so
cooler than our whole game.
On that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's the best part.
I mean, that part sounds cool, but I mean, I do have to fire one shot at this version, and I would fire the same shot at the Brents and Aaron's, and I would probably fire more, but my BB gun only has 3 bullets.
Yeah.
I think you get about 10 shots on this one.
It's a thinking man's BB gun.
Yeah. I think I need
but
more
all
ammo.
these versions, everybody talks about what a great thing it is to you're able to remap your controls. I just want to point out in the PlayStation 2 version, you don't need to remap the controls because they make sense. So all these games where you have to change the controls to play the game, PS2 one was good, from the game.
Yeah, I'm not saying that the controls didn't make sense. I'm just saying there's an option to do that.
I will say
remap the PS2 controls because you don't want to play it.
No, I will say on the Genesis one, this is the other one that I was familiar with before we started this. I always felt it was a little, gosh, I don't know. Like it wasn't fair that Kevin is now not only defending his own house, but now he's like leading the neighborhood watch.
Yeah.
Like he's defending 5 houses or whatever, which is a lot to put on a 10-year-old.
And that's a lot of people gone at the same time.
Well, yeah, but that's
the whole
also
block just went on vacation.
It's Christmas. They're all rich. They went to the Hamptons.
That's the whole conceit of the movie, though. That's the reason why they can't get a hold of any of the other parents when they're on their trip because they're all gone on vacation. So that part makes sense.
It's not lost on me that this game is based on breaking and entering to prevent other people from breaking and entering.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do.
Of note.
All right. Well,
tough measures.
As we bring this show to a conclusive end, we have something a little special that's been produced for us by our buddy Pixels at Dawn, chairman of the Amigos Game Selection Committee, moderator to the stars, and a podcast co-host himself on the Hitching Post podcast. Aaron, do you have that ready to go, that little snippet?
Theoretically, Boat. I'm going to hit the button and we'll see if something happens. You guys won't see it, but everyone else will. Let's see what happens.
Have yourself a wacky little Christmas. Though this year may bite, From now on, Top Banana will be out of sight. Have yourself a wacky little Christmas. Don't mention AGA. From now on, West Virginia won't be miles away. Here we are, talking retro days, happy Amiga days, and more. All our friends who are here for us, Edmund's got beer for us, for sure. Through the years, we all have been together. If hillbilly internet allows, the gamble trains coming over Hillbrow. So have yourselves a wacky little Christmas now. Hearing Bo singing Patreon songs, it goes on too long for sure. Aaron's face says it all for us, but we all should know the score. Through the years, we all have been together. When the internet allows, Boat and Aaron are taking their final bow. So have yourselves a wacky little Christmas now.
Outstanding. Outstanding. I'm sorry you guys could hear that. That was gold. Pixels,
we-
tremendous.
Clappy.
Tremendous.
Yeah, very
Tremendous.
good, very good. We actually could hear that if we
Oh,
can watch the stream
oh,
while
beautiful. Outstanding work, Pix. What a singer he is. Fireside, just glorious. If that doesn't get you into the Christmas spirit, nothing will.
And looking quite dapper.
That's
Mhm.
right. Very good.
All right. So we do want to thank all of our patrons. We've gone so long this evening. I think we will forego the Patreon song tonight, just as a favor to all of
Thank
all of
you.
you.
It's
all
a
of you
Christmas
listeners out there.
miracle.
That's right. But it will be back with a vengeance next
Oh,
week. We might
no.
even have a Patreon band song. I know we've got one in the kitty coming up, so be on the lookout for that. Want to thank once again, why don't we go ahead and have representatives from each show talk a little bit about their own podcast. Let's start with the biggest show, the Pixel Guide-In podcast. Why don't you guys talk a little bit about your show, well, what you do, where we can find you, etc.
Well, when you say the biggest, I assume you mean by quantity, by the length of show.
By quantity, by amount of hosts, all the important things.
Oh, amount of hosts, yes. Quantity and quality are of equal importance here at Pixel Guide In. But yeah, if you guys haven't checked out our show yet, it's just three guys talking, drinking beers and talking video games for the most part. We do all kinds. Eric has his own segment. Tim, our boy over there, you've heard him just a second ago from the UK, has our UK perspective on things. we do a little bantering. We don't quite fight quite as much as we might have heard some other people on this show bicker. But we have our disagreements. We have our hot takes. We like to battle games once a month. We also like to do segments. We call it 6 Good Games, where we pick a topic and we all just find games that we think are good that kind of meet the criteria. For example, in the past, we've done, for last year, for our anniversary, we did 6 good games with Gaiden in the title, which there's a lot of Japanese games that Gaiden in the title. But we release episodes of varying lengths, anywhere from what we try to do is under 2 hours, but almost up to 4 hours at points. Every 15th and 30th, right here on the Amigos network. Did I miss anything, Eric, Tim?
You got it all.
I think you got it all there.
Yeah, it's a great show, and you get a great perspective from 3 guys, Tim in the UK, the boys in California. I've listened to every show since the very first one. I was right there at the beginning. I always love it. I highly recommend it. Plus, it's the only way that I keep even marginally in touch with modern gaming. That's the only way.
I will say, so we say everything retro and retro inspired. So we do play newer titles, indie titles, but at our hearts is retro gaming. So a lot of those new titles are kind of riffs on old games and things like that. I will say we cover every system from the TI 99 all the way up to today. And part of the reason of that is there are only so many good games per system, and eventually if you start covering every game, you have to hit games like Home Alone, which we try to avoid.
Not us.
We like to spread a wide net.
All right, thank you very much, guys. All right, why don't we go to Flack next?
Well, hey, I do a couple different podcasts. One that everybody on the network is probably familiar with is Sprite Castle, which is a podcast where I play, review, and discuss Commodore 64 games. I talk a little bit about Commodore 64 news and all stuff Commodore 64. So you can find that on my website, which is podcast.robohara.com. Or if you subscribe to the Amigos master feed, you will also find copies of that. And I've also started doing some streaming of the same games that I review. So those streams also end up over on the Amigos YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Amigos Retro Gaming. I do another podcast called You Don't Know Flack, which started out as a technology related podcast where I talked about old computers and old arcade games and video games and stuff like that. And somehow down the rabbit hole, I have episodes about ninjas and tornadoes and all kinds of goofy stuff. So, and you can find those in those same places. And of course on iTunes, if that's where you get your feeds from. So, but I just, I like talking about old stuff, and I like talking to all the guys that are here in the channel tonight. Everybody that's on here is all kindred spirits, all guys that love old computers and games and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, right. And if you guys don't listen to, if you guys don't know this already, Flack, this guy that's before you right now is the reason why we started Amigos, because I listened to You Don't Know Flack for years and years, and then when he started Sprite Castle, I thought, and you published an episode about how to do a podcast, and I listened to that, and I thought, hey, I could do that, and so you are the reason for the season.
I revealed all the smoke and mirrors.
Hey, Rob, you mentioned that early you were a tech podcast that turned into a not tech podcast. Am I nuts, or was it one of your first couple episodes on Dungeons and Dragons?
It was like, you know what? That was episode number 2, because on episode number 1, I said, this is a tech podcast and I'm only talking about tech things. And then Gary Gygax died.
Yeah.
And I was like, on episode 2, I go, well, that went out the window. So if you watched any of my streams, you know that wherever we wind up is not where the ship started sailing. There's no telling what the next thing will be about.
All right. Now we go to the Dem Boys. What does that even mean? Where did you get that from?
You don't have to worry about that, Bode. That's what we are, the Dim Boys.
Okay.
You know, Brent, tell everyone what we do over on ARG.
You know, we take a classic system or topic
No, wrong show, dummy.
that was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
on a little show we call ARG Presents. We spin the wheel, which is a literal wheel, as you can see behind Aaron if he next time he is on screen, and we make the deal by diving deep into usually systems we have known nothing about, so we can all learn together.
Because Brent does no research.
Oh, give me a break.
He just randomly picks systems because they sound cool.
Well, okay, that I do.
Yeah.
That. The show actually started with Aaron and John, and I took over about show 16, and we are currently on show 146. So we keep on right a rolling, and of course we are a part of the Amigos Retro Gaming Network, and we've had a great fun time doing it. Sometimes we bicker, and sometimes we agree wholeheartedly. So it's a wild take every time we do it. And Aaron has been known to illegally spin the wheel from time to time. We try not to let him do that, but you know how it goes.
It was for demonstration purposes only, man. I want to mention, one thing I like about ARG is we find all kinds of crazy machines. And
Whether we want to or not.
I got a Twitter note from our good buddy Laurent Giroux. He picked up his own in-the-box copy of Yeti, Brent. So that's the kind of stuff. Yeah, there you go. Stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So we have a good time over there. If you're into just I don't know, a couple dipsticks screwing around with a wheel, that's it. There you go.
Don't come for incredible knowledge.
Yeah.
Just we can't provide that.
We don't got that.
I can attest
stay for the fights. That's what
I can attest to some of the weird and wacky stuff that you guys covered, because you guys covered the Sam Coop.
Oh yes,
yeah.
Me wanty. I like that one. Those things bad.
That's a crazy bonkers machine that is.
I just received this in the mail today. This is a Christmas card from Chris Folds featuring the Sam Coupe right on the old cover there.
Beautiful. Yeah,
how can you beat that?
I also got a card from Folds, and he had wings on the front of mine, so customized to my taste.
My card had Blue Max on it.
Oh,
so
look
Folds
at that.
Getting around.
I love it.
He knows what we like.
He knows.
He knows what we like. All right. And if you are happening to listen to this show and you don't know about the Amigos podcast, this is the show that Aaron and I do. We've been doing for the past 5 years, since 2015, since the 25th anniversary of the Amiga. We've been doing an Amiga game every week, plus all the scene news, a rundown of what's been going on in the world of the Amiga. And it's a lot of fun, supposedly. And
we have a good time until you badmouth stuff, Boat. Then it goes south on us.
But yeah. So the best thing about everything that we do, in my opinion, is the community. We've met so many great people through the Discord, through the messages that we receive, and all of the shows I feel like on the network bring something new and a fresh take in a different way. And I love hearing all the different voices from all the different places. It's really made my year to see all this happen. Just 2020 has been so horrible, and to see the network expanding like we have is really brought joy to my heart.
Lovely, well said. But I want to shout out to all. We've been doing the Amigas for a while, and we've met a lot of great people. I've got a lot of nice cards for Christmas. I've got a lot of nice gifts from a lot of people. Dave has sent me a bunch of stuff, and Folds and some nice cards, and I appreciate it. And I wanted to mention, I just got this in the mail. This is like a holy grail I finally have achieved, Boat. This, sent to me by the Slow Norris, is in fact an Amiga 1000 keyboard cable, Boat.
There you go.
I'm in the game.
You got no more excuses.
I'm in the game. What's that supposed to mean? I've never had an excuse, but yes, I appreciate that, my friend, and all you guys that help keep us doing this. We appreciate it. I think everyone here would agree that The community that's built up around us is a strong, happy community, and despite all the crappy stuff going on in the world, it's always positive and fun to be with, and that's part of the reason we keep on trucking in the boat, and everybody is to keep.
It's the only
keep the ball
reason
rolling.
we keep on trucking.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Thanks as always for listening, and make sure you check out Pixel Gaiden, Sprite Castle, ARG Presents, and the Amigos coming at you every week, except for Pixel Gaiden, which is every 2 weeks. And Sprite Castle also every 2 weeks. Man, do I know how to close it up or
nice
what?
One, Boat.
We'll see you guys next time, and I want to
Thank
hear everybody
you.
say it. Until then, adios.
Feliz Navidad.